Sadistic Penguin Studios presents the At the Show podcast with Tom Yumper Garcia.
Okay, you people sit tight, hold the fort, and keep the home fires burning. And if we're not back by dawn, call the president.
And Tony Chalsa Burt.
I don't know this industry jargon, YP, MP, whatever, okay? All I know is that I cannot get a record contract. We cannot get a record contract unless I take these tapes.
It's almost time, so grab a drink, get your popcorn ready, and join the film discussion with two guys from Chicago talking movies.
Hello, and welcome to episode 51 of the At the Show podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Tom Yumper Garcia, and I'm with my other co-host, Tony Chalsa Burt. How you doing, my man?
Doing good. How are you this evening, my friend?
I am very good and very happy it's the weekend, but the weekend usually goes by very quickly.
Oh, when you say that, that is nothing but the truth right there. I mean, I've made the joke so many times, I'm just going to stay at work and sleep because it feels so quick. But that's what's great about this show. Friday nights come along, and it's like this was a big time when I would used to go to the movies. I mean, when I was in high school, it was Friday nights, right about this time, getting dropped off at the theater. And that's what's cool about this show. It gives me those kind of vibes.
Yeah, man, for sure, for sure. I noticed that my camera is a little smudged, maybe because I was fixing it. But the good news is I have my PC back. In 2 months, it took me to get it back. I got it back. Even leading up to getting it back, there were issues.
I remember you telling me about it. It's like, and then like where I was when you told me. And I remember us going to the steakhouse and you saying it's coming soon. And then, you know, all the other awesome stuff.
Oh yeah, dude. There was a controller issue, a water block issue that had to be ordered. Shout out to the Micro Center people, because Matt from Micro Center, who worked on my PC at the end, he did everything he could to make sure it was up and running, everything was good. They gave me a deal on labor, and they gave me a deal on the other stuff I bought off him. So it wasn't as expensive as it should have been, but they hooked it up because they knew they had it for 2 months. So shout out to them for at least trying to accommodate the time they had it. But yeah, man, it sucked. But happy to have it back, my friend. I'm happy to have it back. Luke says he's first. I assume here now first.
You wish you were.
Yeah, Corey and Brian. But we have a packed show, my man. We're gonna do a twofer again today. We're gonna go over the cult classics of Alien and Aliens. So you know, we're both big movies that we're really into. Both by iconic directors and Ridley Scott and the great James Cameron. This all came together because Tony's a huge fan of the prequel films, and Alien Romulus, I think, is coming out, and we're trying to keep the show to center around movies that are coming out. So if it's something that's coming out in a week or so, we try to keep it related to a movie that we want to review that has something to do with, like we did Ghostbusters, and Ghostbusters Frozen Empire came out. So we did Ghostbusters 1 and 2. You can sleep when you're dead. Yeah, it's true. So now we're doing Alien, and rewatching these two films is actually a real fun experience, man.
Oh man, you actually, when we were at that ball game a couple weekends ago, you looked at me and you said something along the lines of like, tonight I think I'm going to put on Aliens. And honestly, you said it out loud, and it was like almost like a spirit from the sky entered my head, because I seriously drove home and was like, that does sound awesome. And then I put it on at night, and it got me more excited because we talked about we were going to be doing this episode. And honestly, the movie's very akin to my heart. So I'm very excited about this.
For sure, man. But before we get into Aliens, let's go into one of our regular segment, my friend. And let's go into what we've been watching.
That's a me. And also, what were you just watching?
So, my friend, what were you watching this week?
A couple different things. Number one, I was watching a new show on HBO Max that I suggest called Tokyo Vice. If you have not heard this show, definitely what I would deem to be a very awesome kind of underground. There's gangster elements to it. There's the lead actor in this television show. I always get his name a little bit. What's the word? A little. I don't know. Ansel Elgort, I think is how you pronounce it. But that being said, really, really awesome show. If you like movies like Black Rain, and you like kind of, he plays a newspaper reporter, and he works in Japan, where in Japan there's no crime, so he has to kind of work along and go underground and find out all this cool things. And really awesome actor also in the television show that you may be familiar with is Ken Watanabe, who is just awesome in anything that you happen to catch him in, and he plays a great detective in the show. But personally, really awesome. Michael Mann is the producer. He directed the first episode of the first season, and that's kind of what drew me in, because anything with Michael Mann, it's about 50-50. It's about 50. It's actually about 20, 80. It's not many of subtitles because the lead character's American. So he does a little bit, but it's more American than it is, 40-60. I don't know about all the percentages, but definitely it's worth the view. Personally, right now, my wife, which I would not think this would be a show that she would enjoy, asked me, would it be okay if she can watch the next episode without me while we did this show? And I said, yes, that's okay. I'll watch it again later. But show's really good, and I suggest checking it out, especially you, Yumper, who I think you would enjoy the lights and definitely the camera work. And I know you like some Michael Mann movies. Definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned this because when we had Richard Roper on during our first season, he actually recommended this show to me
Really?
because he was a huge fan of it. Yeah, he said he started watching it and he really liked it because we were talking about Mindhunter off air,
Mm.
and he was telling me how much he liked that, and he's like, "You gotta check out Tokyo Vice," and I'm like, and I was like, "Oh, I have." He's like, "It's still new." He goes, "But the first few episodes," he goes, "I really enjoyed them." So I was always wanting to watch it, and I never got around to it. So now that you're reassuring me to watch it again, I definitely will have to look into it.
I think like last week, the second season wrapped up, which season 1 has 8 episodes, and season 2 has 10 episodes. So, and honestly, he wasn't wrong, because I think you would definitely enjoy it. The next film, because you brought up earlier, we try to connect different things, and as soon as I can get out and see Civil War, I'm going to do that because the movie looks pretty awesome. But I went back to Civil War director Alex Garland's first movie, which I don't know if you're a fan of or have seen, but Ex Machina is, I think, just a really, really, really awesome movie. Have you seen it, Yumper?
Vaguely, I can't remember anything about it.
Oscar Isaac is just in the movie. If you are a fan out there of Oscar Isaac, but definitely sci-fi awesomeness. Really quick, the backdrop also in the movie. What's funny is Oscar Isaac is in it from the Star Wars movies, and so is Domhnall Gleeson. But just a really, really awesome. Pretty much what it is if you don't remember really quickly, is that and Alicia Vikander's in it too, who pretty much does a really incredible job. But just really good, awesome sci-fi greatness.
Yeah, looking it up on the side right here, I've seen. Yeah, okay, I've seen it. I just can't remember it about much about it, so I would have to do a rewatch.
It's like pretty much like he goes, Domhnall Gleeson goes to the middle of nowhere where he's going to do a pretty much a newspaper expose on Oscar Isaac and introduce this robot, but then realizes there's more dark and sinister stuff going on. And Alex Garland, if you haven't also seen his other movies, Annihilation or Man, which
Mhm.
which just came out on HBO Max actually today. definitely really an awesome filmmaker, and that's why I want to see the Civil War. I'm hearing good things about it.
Yeah. So what I watched this week is what pretty much everyone was talking about. I finally got a chance to finish Fallout, the Amazon Prime series. Now, let me preface this by saying I'm a huge fan of the Fallout video games. I played the first two on PC, and then I played Fallout 3 on the original Xbox, and then New Vegas on the 360, and then Fallout 4 on the Xbox One, and then 76 on the new one, which is not the best Fallout, but it's okay. So I'm a huge fan of them. When I heard this was being made, I was kind of hesitant because video game adaptations don't really have the best, the live action ones especially don't really have the best, history of being good. We have Super Mario Brothers as an example. Even though it's a funny movie that I'll still watch, it's not really the best. And then you have the newer Super Mario Brothers, but that's animated. Max Payne comes to mind. That movie ruined, any chance that a good Max Payne could be made.
What about the Mortal Kombat movies?
I mean, they were cheesy 90 movies. The newer one is, but I think better than the originals. So it's going on the right path. But when you have source material like this, it's
I
kind of
know.
out there, and it worried me. But Ella Purnell, the great Walter Goggins, who doesn't get enough credit for the actor he is. Downtown. I mean, Brian always laugh about him being from Downtown from Major League 3,
Oh
but
yeah.
from The Shield, he was awesome in. You know, um, Moses Arias, who's another good actor, and then Aaron Clifton Moulton, who's actually another actor that I just found him in this series. I thought he was phenomenal. I love the writing. I think they kind of stood close to the source material in terms of the way the wasteland is built. But they came out and said this is not going to follow the games. It's going to be built in that you know, uh, platform, that environment, but we're gonna make our own story and we're gonna explain things. And they explain why the Pip Boy is named the Pip Boy, why the logos are. I just like the little things that add on to it. Hopefully, it's made canon. But it definitely made me want to go back and to play the games again. So I started playing New Vegas when I have time, which is not very a lot. So I think I'm basically still on the first screen. But it's like something that makes me want to go back and play the games to get back into it. And I read today that this being released, it had over, I think, 1 million people join Fallout 4 and Fallout 76. A million other people joined that to play. So it's getting new players to join, which is a good
Hmm.
thing. Which they said there's a Fallout 5 coming, but it's probably gonna be in a couple years because they're working on Elder Scrolls. And this just got picked up for season 2. So I enjoyed it a lot. Did you have a chance to watch this?
Did I have a chance to watch this? I watched episode number 1, and I plan to watch more this weekend. I watched it last weekend. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Ella Purnell is really an awesome actress, and she was really, really awesome in Showtime's. Oh, it's now I've lost the title. The one that was just came out this last year with the girls, really cool. Now at
Oh,
Yellow
the
Jackets.
Yellow Jackets, yeah. I said
Really,
Beast.
really love the that show a lot, and so seeing her, honestly, when I pressed play, all I knew was Walter Goggins was on it, and that was enough. Seeing her also star in it gets me excited that I'm excited to watch the rest of it. But after the first episode, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. And me knowing nothing about the video games and turning this on, I do enjoy it. And I also enjoyed another show recently that came out that was The Last of Us. I thought that was a pretty good adaptation just
Mhm.
by storytelling. I don't know, I didn't play the game, but this seems to be another successful run like that's going to be successful. A lot of people seem to like it.
Yeah, another game that came out, Uncharted. I didn't think the movie was horrible. I thought it was pretty
I've
decent.
never seen that one. Maybe I
But,
will now
my
since they're
brother, who's a
horrible.
huge fan of the games, was, like, kinda critical of the character, like, casting there.
It's the one with Spider-Man, right?
Yeah, with Tom Holland and Mark
Yeah,
Wahlberg.
yeah.
Mostly because Sully, the character that Mark Wahlberg plays, is an older man
Oh,
in
that
the game, and they played Mark Wahlberg, which makes me laugh, but,
is funny.
and I was worried about how they're gonna cast this. It kinda makes me think of Borderlands. Borderlands right now was a game I played. I played all 3 Borderlands, and the casting was getting a lot of questions. Jamie Lee Curtis, as her character she plays in the movie, in the game, it's a younger woman. Kevin Hart's character is like supposed to be a 6'5" soldier, and Kevin Hart we all know is like 5'4". So I want to see how that. I'm not gonna like basically cut it off, but I want to see how that movie works out. This show gave me kind of hope that okay, they can write something different and while keeping close to source material. So I'm really looking forward to the next season. I do want to do a more in-depth like review of this, so look out for that coming on the channel within the coming weeks. I'll have something planned out, whether it might be a one-off or it might be a series of videos or a series of just like mini pods. Look for that. So because I was a really big fan of it. I know several people I've been talking to have been really big fans of it. So we'll be doing something with that soon. But that's what we watched this week. Let us know what you watched this week at the pod, at the show pod on Twitter or X, whatever it's called, or just hit us up at Low Yumper and the Sugar Baggy on Twitters. But with that, maybe Tony, are you? Yep, Tony froze again. So we are going to go into our.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can see you. You're just sort of looking down. I was like, oh, yeah, like you froze. I thought it was me at first, but it was you. It's all good. But we're gonna go into our main event here because we do have a lot of material to cover. I have over 17 pages of notes, but we're not all going to use all those notes. We're not going to go through them like word for word, but we're going to touch on the key points because we are reviewing 2 movies today. But with that tone, let's get into our main event, which is Aliens, and starting with the 1979 film Alien. When was the first time you watched Alien, Tone?
The very first movie I watched it, actually, I own the original cassettes that my dad recorded off of the television. I still own these cassettes because they mean the world to me, because what he actually did is he wrote in real cool magic marker on the side, like alien and cool letters and aliens with like a little alien and stuff like that. So for me, these movies were pretty much the first movies probably at the age I shouldn't be watching that I was watching. And honestly, the beginning of both movies, just the music, the starting really they kind of scare me a little bit. You liking horror movies quite a lot. To me, these movies are pretty scary. I don't know if you think that they're scary, but I think they kind of could fall a little bit into the horror category.
Oh, definitely. Sci-fi horror.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, as we'll talk about it more when we go into depth, like but Alien is known for being a horror movie. Like their tagline was no, in space nobody can hear you scream. It's a horror movie set in a sci-fi setting in a spaceship. That was kind of done before a little bit with 2001 Space Odyssey. But this is another like play off it with an extraterrestrial. And it was like it revolutionized horror in general for a lot of reasons. And then Aliens is a horror movie, but it's more of an action horror. So it's 2 totally different films, which I love that they're back to back, and both done by 2 legendary directors, putting their own style and spin on things, which I really liked. I first discovered Alien my mom. You said like I grew up watching horror. My mom showed it to us on a VHS. We rented it from Masterpiece Video on 47th in Ashland. We went there, we rented it, and we watched it at home. And I was just mesmerized by the effects of the creature. The way I always was wondering why is it so wet, because it's always like pouring I just thought it was cool, like the way it had a second mouth. It was just awesome. It made you feel alone. I love in certain parts of the film the silence that comes through. Like there's no music, that ominous music. It's just like silence when approaching, or the jump scares. These are real meaningful jump scares.
This scene right here is just something like that, where it's just like the horn going burn, burn, and she's walking and stuff like that. No, I'm right with you.
Yeah. And then the Aliens, I saw that of course, on VHS. We had the 2 movies on VHS. I watched that. My mom and dad bought it as, like, a twin pack when they had
Mm,
those, I think, at Montgomery Ward
mm.
back in the day. Um, so we watched those. Me and brother watched those out. And then they're all Aliens is always, like, a regular on Up USA Up All Night. That was always a regular film, or on TNT. Joe Bob Briggs used to play it sometimes. So whenever it was on, or even if it's on now, I'd still watch it. It's got a lot of iconic, scenes in it.
Do you
Uh,
have a preference?
for which one?
Mhm.
I'll let you know at the end of the show.
Alright, sounds good.
But with that tone, let's get into, the development of these 2 films.
In my thoughts, I use the technique of positive visualization.
So 1979 Alien is what we're gonna start with, and this film came out with the vision, well, it's actually made from the vision of a man named Dan O'Bannon. Now, Dan O'Bannon might be known to people in the sci-fi realm because he was actually a special effects supervisor on Star Wars, and he co-wrote Total Recall and Heavy Metal, which are 2 great films. Heavy Metal, of course, is more music oriented, but Recall is probably one of the best sci-fi films that in history, if not to go along with the RoboCop, which were both directed by the same person. Both great films. He also did another film called Dark Star, which is a John Carpenter film. Now that's more of a, I guess, black comedy horror comedy film. O'Bannon was really intrigued by it because in that film it had an alien, but the alien was a spray painted beach ball with rubber claws. And he wanted to make a film that had a real looking monster. So it kind of got the wheels churning in his mind to do something. He eventually met up with another writer by the name of Ronald Shusett, and they collaborated on a lot of projects. They both co-wrote Total Recall together. Uh, Shusett saw actually the Carpenter film Dark Star and really liked it, and he contacted O'Bannon's like, "Hey, you got any ideas that you're working on?" And he kinda told him about the story of, the premise of Alien and what he was thinking about doing. And O'Bannon already had 29 pages for his script, and he called it Memory. The premise was pretty much the same as Alien, but they didn't have any idea what the creature would look like. He was kinda running into writer's block. Eventually, O'Bannon was actually hired to write an adaptation of Dune. The project fell through, but he had to work in Paris for 6 months, and while in Paris, he met, with artists and special effects savants like Chris Foss, H.R. Geiger, and Jean Girard, who are illustrators and special effects makers, for sci-fi films as well as other films. This gave him a bunch of ideas, just speaking to them of what the monster could look like and stuff that he could do in terms of the story. So have you seen any stuff by, like, Chris Foss or H.R. Geiger or Girard?
Yes, I have. Really, really awesome artwork. H.R. Geiger has done album covers too,
Mhm.
for bands, which is really awesome. And to see, um, again, you can see some of that in Alien. It's awesome.
Yeah, he actually says that Geiger's, art kinda, like, freaked him out a little bit,
Yeah, yeah,
which I
yeah.
which I thought was funny. But when he returned to Los Angeles after this trip, he and Shusett actually went and lived in an apartment together, to rewrite the script because he had all these new ideas. And then Shusett said, "Well, why don't we do a different idea for the script? You have them on a ship. Why don't we do something where we tailor it to the story of Gremlins?" Now, when you think of Gremlins, you think of the movie Gremlins with the little creatures. What he's talking about is the gremlin you would think of in terms of Twilight Zone with the actual monster outside of the plane that infiltrates the plane. And he says, "Why don't you do something like that, but infiltrating like a B-17 bomber, but set the B-17 bomber to a spaceship in the second half." Um, they also named this script Star Beast, which is totally
He doesn't
70s
look
and
bad.
80s. Um,
Darby.
but as he was reading this script, O'Bannon figured he would just change it to alien, which he liked more because he kept using alien as an adjective in the script. And he's like, "Yeah, let's just use alien." And it stuck, which I don't know if this movie would have made as much money if it was called Star Beast. Um, but Shudson also came up with the idea of a crew member being implanted by an embryo and the creature bursting out to get the creature on the ship. So they were filling in their plot holes. Um, Also, for more of the storyline and screenwriting, it was conceptual artist Ron Cobb who came up with the idea that the alien should bleed acid. This came about when O'Bannon ran to a wall with the screenplay and how to handle the last half of the movie. He needed a good reason for why the crew members don't just shoot the thing and kill it, but still not making it but still not making it an indestructible monster, um, that can be killed, that can't be killed. The acid blood was a good idea, and basically he used that to solve his problem. So he's fixing things as he goes along. Uh, the pair also drew inspiration from such films as The Thing from Another Planet, the 1951 film. What they pulled from there was basically it's about being pursued by an alien in a catastrophic environment. Forbidden Planet in 1956, they got the stuff for the crew being killed one by one by a monster, as well as a ship it being on a ship and not on land. And then lastly, from Planet of the Vampires, a 1956 film that had a giant skeleton in the from a previous vampire that he actually used for this film. When they see the makers, what were they called? They say them in Prometheus. What are they known as?
The engineers.
Engineers, yes, the engineers, uh, where they find that and that iconic scene is actually trans over to Prometheus. When O'Bannon and Shustis wrote the screenplay, they did not set the action in a specific year. They only had it specified that it was 2087 as a year in which humanity basically has established colonies in neighboring star systems and suggested that the film took place sometime after that. So they tried not to pin down, a year. They just set a hard date for 2087, which is a year that, people could start going on colonies. Well, we're about, I say 59 years away from it, 58 or 49 years away from it. Um, maybe, it happens, I don't know.
Yeah.
But if you think about the '60s, they said we would be living on the moon by now.
Flying cars, yeah.
Yeah, flying cars, and we're nowhere near that. So that's kind of the funny thing, when you look back at it. In the original script, the names of the characters were Standard, Robbie, Bossard, Mechanus, Hunter, and Faust. There was no Ash character. Producers Walter Hill and David Geyer hated those names, and they changed them repeatedly during their revisions. They finally settled on Dallas, Ripley, Kane, Lambert, Parker, Brett, and Ash. The script by O'Bannon and Shusett also had a clause indicating that all the characters were unisex, meaning they could be cast with men or women. Consequently, all the characters are only referred to by their last name, and few gender pronouns are used when during the film. Copywriter Barbara Gibbs came up with the famous line, "In space, no one can hear you scream." So that's why we have that on the posters, and that's the tagline of the film, which I think is perfect for the film going forward. Um, it's a great way to kind of sell the film that way.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
so with most of the plot in place, they go to find a studio. They were pitching this film as Jaws in space, which I thought is hilarious.
Uh,
'Cause I just imagine like a flying shark, and then Jaws 3D pops into my head.
yeah, with the going through the screen real slow.
Yeah, they're on the verge of signing a deal with Roger Corman's studio when a friend offered to find them a better deal and pass on the script on to Gordon Carroll, David Geyer, and Walter Hill, who had formed a production company called Brady Wine with ties to 20th Century Fox. They eventually went and signed with them, which was awesome. And they have their studio, so now they have to find a director. So Walter Hill, who people who might not know, he actually directed The Warriors, another great film. Walter Hill, old time director. He, I think did he do Kroll? Did he also do Kroll? Walter Hill? Yeah, I know he did another 40. He did 48 Hours.
Yeah, he did 48 Hours, which was, again, I was going to say, is a great. He's done The Warriors. He's done Streets of Fire.
Mhm.
No, he did not do.
He did. I know he produced Blue City. I know he did. I know he produced Geronimo. I just can't remember if he.
He's. Just he did not do Crawl. I got it pulled up right here. He's done
Awesome.
like Johnny Handsome, Red Heat.
Red Heat. Okay, Red
which
Heat.
which is pretty good movie.
James Belushi.
He did.
I
You ever see Bullet to the Head with
Adam
um
Sandler.
or
No, it's
Stallone?
Sloan, yes. Oh god,
That
yeah.
was like the last. That was like one of his last ones. Yeah, but
I understand why. Actually, on a side note, if you have the Warriors, special edition Blu-ray, he actually does a nice little, like, intro to it,
That'd be a good
and
episode to do sometime.
yeah, his commentary to the film is awesome. So I would definitely recommend to check that out. But, he couldn't do it because he had other commitments. So they were looking for directors. They went to Peter Yates, John Borman, Jack Clayton, Robert Aldrich, and Robert Altman were considered for it. But O'Bannon and Shusitz felt that the directors might look at this as like a B movie. Um, Gillier, Hill, and Carroll have been impressed by Ridley Scott's debut film, The Duelist, which was released in 1977. So they
Duelist.
decided to make an offer to him to direct Alien, which Scott quickly accepted. And, looking at Scott's interviews with this, he says that he did not know what he was getting himself into. Um, Also, Ridley Scott has a reputation for not being the easiest person to work with. So a lot of that comes up in this development of this film. But he adds so much to it. It's kind of like a oil and vinegar, double-edged sword, I guess,
Yeah.
for this film. Scott created detailed storyboards for the film in London, which impressed Fox enough to double the film's budget. His storyboards include designs for the spaceship and spacesuits, drawing on such films such as 2001 Space Odyssey and Star Wars. However, he was keen on emphasizing horror in Alien rather than fantasy, describing this film as a Texas Chainsaw Massacre of science fiction, which I think is pretty awesome way to describe it. And it's kind of like its own way like that because as you know, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre revolutionized horror in terms of slasher,
Mhm.
along with Halloween. Um, this one did the same as well in terms of sci-fi. So it's kind of like two revolutionary films described that way. That you're pulling off one that was revolutionary back then, uh, as your description, which I thought was kind of cool. For casting, with only 7 human characters in the story, Scott sought to hire strong actors, so he could focus more on the energy of the film's visual style. He employed casting director Mary Selway, who had worked with him on The Duelist, to head the casting in the United Kingdom, while Mary Goldberg handled the casting in the United States. In developing the story, O'Bannon had focused on writing the alien first, putting off the development of the characters. Schutzit and he had intentionally written all the roles generically. So basically, they made a note, like the script that specifically says the crew is unisex and all parts are interchangeable for men and women. So that's like the most dullest generalization of roles. Uh, this freed Scott, Selway, and Goldberg to interpret the characters as they please and to cast accordingly. They wanted the Nostromo's crew to resemble working astronauts in a realistic environment, a concept summarized as truckers in space, which I think is a hilarious term.
Mm.
According to Scott, this concept was inspired by Star Wars again, which derived from the pristine future often depicted in science fiction films all the time. To assist the actors in preparing for their roles, Scott wrote several pages of backstory for each character, explaining their histories. He filmed many of their rehearsals to capture their improvisation and the spontaneous ways they acted, and tensions between some of the cast members, particularly towards the less experienced Sigourney Weaver. This translated convincingly to the film as tension between the characters. So that's kind of cool. Once he cast them, he actually made them, do like little backstories, which I thought was kind of cool.
Very
Just
cool.
it just shows how detail oriented Ridley Scott is, and this is his second film, so it just shows the man has a passion for this, which I think is crazy. Uh,
Awesome director, man. I mean, so many great movies. Black Rain, which I mentioned earlier, is
yes,
Ridley Scott, which is crazy that not even thinking I put those two. That's what's awesome about this show. Never even just till now. Just there you go. Great.
yep, great movie too. Andy Garcia's in it too.
Oh, love Andy Garcia.
So we get to the cast now. We have Tom Skerritt as Dallas, who is the captain of the Nostromo. Skerritt had been approached early in the film's development, but he declined as he did not the film didn't have a director yet, and it had a very low budget. Um, when Skirt first read the screenplay for this film, he declined it to be involved. He wasn't impressed with the quality of the film and low budget. So they actually went to another person by the name of Harrison Ford, and they offered him the role of Captain Dallas. He said no, he turned it down. Later, they again went to Skirt again after they rewrote the script and the budget was raised, so he had prompted him to sign on. Halfway through production, I found this very interesting. He approached the writer and executive producer Ronald Schutz asking if he could trade his salary for half a percentage point of the royalties. It doesn't say if he got it or not, but that shows how much confidence he had in this film, which is
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um, for the character of Kane, they went with a person called John Fitch. So John Fitch was contracted on the film in South Africa to film this role, but unfortunately, he became ill during the first day of shooting and was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes.
Ooh.
So, which exuberated a case of bronchitis, and like he was really sick. Um, so they went with the first choice before they went to John Fitch, which was John Hurt, who was in London at the time,
Ooh.
and he had a South African project that fell through, which eventually prevented him from taking the role in the first place, and he got the role. So the person they wanted at first got the role due to somebody being sick, which is pretty crazy. The second, the issue that I think is funny is that Skirt was their first pick. He turned it down. They went to Harrison Ford. He turned it down, and then they got their first pick with him. John Hurt was their first pick. He couldn't do it because he was doing something else. The person they cast got sick, and they still got their first pick, which I think is
Worked out that way. I mean, not really all the time, but look at
yeah,
all these guys. These are some of their greatest roles.
yes, and it's pretty crazy. For the character of Ripley, the warrant officer aboard the Nostromo, the role was originally male until the head of the studio, Alan Ladd Jr., suggested Ripley be a female, so they changed it to a female. Meryl Streep was considered for the role, but she was not contacted after her partner John Cazale. That's Cazale, how do you say his last name, I believe?
Yes.
Okay, I want to make sure I was saying it correctly. 'Cause John Cazale had recently died. Now, if you don't know who John Cazale is, he is actually Fredo from the Godfather series. He was also in Hard Day's Night, Hard Day,
Oh, Dog Day Afternoon.
Dog Day Afternoon. Thank you.
For me, you're thinking the Beatles. I'm like, for a minute in my head, I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Dog the Beatles? Yeah, no, you're
I was
yeah.
getting confused.
No, you're good. You're good.
But he was in 5 Best Picture nominations in a
Amazing
row.
movies.
Phenomenal actor. Unfortunately, he passed too young from cancer. But Meryl Streep was actually up for the role, and another unknown Broadway experience actress by the name of Sigourney Weaver was up for it.
Mm.
So Weaver, who had a Broadway experience but was relatively unknown in the film, impressed Scott, Geyer, and Hill with her audition. She was the last actor to be cast for the film and performed most of her screen tests in studio as the sets were being filmed. The role of Ripley was Weaver's first leading role in a motion picture and earned her nominations for a Saturn Award for Best Actress and a BAFTA Award for the Most Promising Newcomer to Leading Film Role, which is this is the film that basically projected, propelled her in her career. And it's kind of crazy that Meryl Streep would have been offered a role if, she hadn't been dealing with the unfortunate death of her boyfriend. I can't see Meryl Streep playing this role. This is me. A phenomenal actress. I just can't see her doing this role.
I've seen Meryl Streep in a lot of stuff. I could, but again, it's early Meryl Streep that I'm seeing, like not the Meryl Streep that probably has been burned in your brain for the last 35 years, but like the Meryl Streep in like Deer Hunt. Like there's a couple scenes where like there's scenes in this movie where maybe not some of the stuff where she's holding the guns, but some of the emotional, like being scared or AK facing it could. But again, it's so hard to do that because Sigourney Weaver is the role, and
Yeah. Veronica Cartwright was cast as Lambert, Nostromo's navigator. Now, Cartwright had experience in horror and science fiction films, having acted as a child in a great film called The Birds, and more recently in Invasion of the Body Snatchers. 2 really, really great horror films if you haven't seen them. She actually originally read for the role of Ripley and was not informed that she had been cast as Lambert until she arrived in London for wardrobe. She disliked the character's emotional weakness, but nevertheless accepted the role.
Oh god, yeah, her
Yeah,
voice,
yeah.
yeah.
They convinced me that I was the audience's fears. I was a reflection of what the audience is feeling. I have a comment to say about that, but we'll do it when we do the film breakdown for her role. But yeah, even she did not like even she did not like the role of Lambert and the way the character was. Um, which I can understand why. Yaphet Kotto was cast as Parker, the chief engineer. Kotto was sent the script off the back of his recent success as a villain and Dr. Kanaga in the James Bond film Live and Let Die. Uh, he said he rejected a lucrative film offer in hope of being cast in Alien. So another person who read the script and loved it and had a kind of idea this movie's gonna be a hit. He rejected a lucrative, film role, so we don't know how true it is, but it's kinda crazy if it's true that, these people are already saying this film's gonna be pretty good. Harry Dean Stanton as Brett, the
Man, right
engineering
here. I love
yeah,
Harry
the
Dean
engineering
Stanton.
section. Stanton's first words to Scott during his auditions were, "I don't like sci-fi or monster movies." Scott was amused and convinced Stanton to take the role after reassuring him that Alien would actually be a thriller more akin to The 10 Little Indians, another film that, I don't like the title of that, but, I never seen that before. And then we have the great Ian Holm as Ash, the ship's science officer who's actually an android, spoiler alert. Holmes was a character actor who by 1979 had already been in 20 films. And the funny thing about Holmes being cast is he's the most experienced actor of this whole, little hodgepodge group of actors. Uh, so he's kind of like the veteran, and he was in 20 films. And Ian Holmes is he's not a person that is very, shies away from sci-fi. He's in another one of my great films in terms of sci-fi, The Fifth Element. He plays the
Oh,
priest.
great movie right there.
So, I love Ian Holm. I thought he's a great actor, and, unfortunately, he is passed, but, he was awesome in this role as Ash. He's also Bilbo Baggins. I
He's
know
the
you don't
Hobbit.
like yeah, I know
I
you
know.
don't like,
I was gonna say he's the Hobbit, but, you could respect him in the role. Actually, I could respect everyone in that movie in their roles, but, Ian Holm is again, Fifth Element, that's a great movie.
yeah, he's a great actor.
It is.
So it's kinda cool seeing him in there.
Mhm.
Excuse me, I'm gonna butcher this name, but Balaji Bondejo as the alien. Bondejo, as a 26-year-old design student, was discovered in a bar by a member of the casting team who put him in touch with Ridley Scott. Scott believed that Bondejo at 6'10" with the slender frame could portray the alien and look at his arms and legs were too long to be real, creating the illusion that a human could not possibly be inside the costume. So he had really long arms and legs. Scott sent Bodejo to mime and Tai Chi classes to prepare for the role. Also, stuntmen Eddie Powell and Roy Schammel also portrayed the alien in some scenes. And then rounding out the cast is a character who is not seen on screen but is heard throughout the whole damn movie, and that's the voice of Mother, the Nostromo's computer, and that's played by Helen Horton.
Mother.
So that's our cast there, Tone. But looking through the history of these films, they had some trouble, with these both films. And the trouble with this film was with the writers. Since Hill and Geyer had very little experience on science fiction, according to Schutzit, he says they weren't good at making it better, or in fact, at making it even worse. O'Bannon believed that Hill and Geyer were attempting to justify taking his name off the script and claiming Schussett and his work as their own. Hill and Geyer did add some substantial elements to the story, including the android character Ash, like we mentioned, which O'Bannon felt was unnecessary. Subplot, but when Schussett later described it as one of the best things in the movie, the whole idea and scenario was theirs. So they're saying they took credit. Now they're taking credit back and forth between each other now. Hill and Geyer went through 8 drafts of the script in total, concentrating largely on the Ash subplot, but also making the dialogue more natural and trimming some sequences set on the alien planetoid. Despite the fact that the final shooting script was written by Hill and Geyer, the Writers Guild of America awarded O'Bannon sole credit for the screenplay. Dan O'Bannon was hypercritical of any changes made to the script. And to be fair, he defended some aspects of the film that ended up being the most iconic, including H.R. Geiger's designs for the alien. Although he could come on set and nitpick, O'Bannon was generally welcomed on the set by Ridley Scott. This is where I find it's funny to hear, Tom. Until O'Bannon lost his temper and insulted Scott in front of the whole crew.
Ugh.
The producers, including Walter Hill, had minimal respect for O'Bannon and largely ignored him, giving him little credit once the movie became a success. So there was trouble on the Alien sets with O'Bannon and the crew, which I think is
Oh.
pretty crazy.
That's
So that's the development of Alien. Now let's go over to the sequel and go with this development of Aliens, the 1986 film. So this film was very, very hard to be made, the sequel of Alien. Despite the success of the first film, Brady Wine Productions, which produced the first film, had a hard time convincing 20th Century Fox to make it. Alan Ladd Jr. was supportive of it. He was the president of 20th Century Fox at the time, but he left to make his own company. And his replacement, Norman Levy, who also didn't want to make Ghostbusters, if you remember, was against it due to the cost. The cost always come up, man. I think of that Principal Skinner gif, he does the money sign.
yeah.
Fox executives also believed that the first film was a fluke success. Progress was slowed again when Geyer and Brady Wine co-founders Walter Hill and Gordon Carroll sued Fox for unpaid profits from Alien. They were using Hollywood accounting methods. This is how it's written. Fox had declared Alien a financial loss despite its over 100 million box office against a 9 to 11 million budget. Brady Wine's lawsuit was settled in early 1983, the result being that Fox would finance the development of Alien 2, but was not required to distribute the film. Again, the film was in kind of purgatory. Levy's replacement, Joe Wiseman, was open to making the film, but the film's was still pushed back by a bunch of executives. So he said, "Okay, I'm open to making this film," and all the other executives are still pushing back in this. So David Geyer, co-founder of Brady Wine Productions, when he heard that Wiseman was open to making the film, he's like, "You know what? Let's just get the ball rolling." So he had his development executive Larry Wilson look for a scriptwriter. Larry Wilson happened to come across a script called The Terminator and was very impressed by it. Wilson was so convinced by the script and how great it was, he showed it to Geyer, Hill, and Carroll. In 1983, November of that year, James Cameron submitted 42 pages, a 42-page treatment for Alien. You had written in 3 days, based on Geyer and Hill's suggestion of Ripley and its soldiers. He pitched it by spelling it aliens, but with a money sign at the end, which I think is hilarious. This, however, didn't go over well because they thought probably the script was lacking, and they tried to sell the rights to Alien 2 to the creators of Rambo.
Ooh.
Which is kind of funny
Wow.
because there is some Rambo like stuff in this film. But the fact they try to sell it to Rambo makes me laugh. Like, can you imagine Rambo fighting an alien?
No, I don't want to imagine that. No.
Rambo versus Xenomorph. That needs to be in Sylvester Stallone's next film, his final film.
That would be good. Like one now today, like a cheesy Alien versus Predator versus Stallone, like a three-way battle
Versus Terminator.
versus Terminator versus it's all the first.
Luckily, in 1984, Lawrence Gordon replaced Wiseman and was surprised no one wanted to make the sequel. He subsequently greenlit this film and said, "Make it. Sequels are moneymakers." Terminator at this time, though, was delayed due to Arnold Schwarzenegger having to make Conan the Barbarian. It was in his contract he had to make that film before he can make Terminator. So they delayed Terminator's releasing for Conan. It was delayed for 7 months, and Cameron put the finishing touches on this film, finishing it just before the writer's strike in 1985. The script he gave was well received, but Cameron also wants to direct it. Now, before this, Cameron, I think, directed Piranha 2, which is his only film besides Terminator. Terminator hadn't been released yet. Piranha 2 was out, and Piranha 2 was like a low budget horror film. I mean, the newer ones are low budget as well. I mean, they're more CGI, but low budget story in terms of horror. So, of course, there was pushback against it. Uh, he was eventually given the job, though, after Terminator blew up. Scott says he was never even offered the chance to direct a sequel, and a lot of that probably is attributed to him being real difficult to work with, which is kind of like the thing that Ridley Scott's known for. So they have a director now. They gave the thing to James Cameron. They have a writer, and James Cameron wrote the script already, but there's still issues going on here. There's cost issues, and then they're talking about not bringing back Sigourney Weaver. Well, it would seem like a no-brainer to bring back Weaver as Ripley. Fox didn't want to use her because they thought she would cost too much. Again, the money. Weaver was reluctant to and need to be convinced for the film as well because she didn't want it to be a money grab, which is understandable because the film was in purgatory for 7 years. But a decent film that could be made on its own is what she wanted. And then there was the issue of guns in the film. Sigourney Weaver, if you don't know, is a very stout advocate of guns. It took some time for Cameron to explain why they were necessary for the film. She would later jokingly refer to herself as Rambolina, which is why I think it's funny they try to sell her to Rambo, sell this franchise to Rambo. She was paid $1 million for the role, which at the time was the most of her career and was a lot of money back then. And I think it's with inflation, it's like $2 million today. Finally, with her on board now, they have her star back. Fox again is complaining about money, and they're like, "Man, this movie's gonna cost too much." So they told Cameron. They told Cameron and Gail Hurd, the person he was working on the film with, who he eventually married as well. They told them, "Hey, we don't know if we can do this. This film is too much money." So Gail Hurd and James Cameron said this: "Fuck all y'all." This is a quote. "We're going to get married in Hawaii, and it's all off." And we just walked away. Fox got nervous, and they gave them whatever they wanted. So they forced their hand and basically got what they wanted, and it paid off. So James Cameron was pretty much over this games with the studio in terms of money, which I think is hilarious. It just shows you, even with a success, they try to drain every little drop out of budget, and
Sure
they
do.
still do to today. So now we have our lead star back, and Sigourney Weaver is coming back, from the previous film, and now we have our new cast being made here. For the role of Dwayne Hicks, who is the corporal in the Colonial Marines, the role was originally offered to James Remar. Now, if you don't know who James Remar is, he plays Ajax in The Warriors. He's also in Too Fast, Too Furious, which is not a great movie.
Plays
He's also
Dexter's father in the show Dexter.
Yep, he does play Dexter's father in the show Dexter. He's also in Red with John Malkovich and Bruce Willis as one of the pilots. He's a very good character actor. He's also one of our my favorite films.
Oh yeah, I mean we can go all night on James Remar.
Yeah.
He's another one, kind of like Andy Garcia, who's just awesome.
Yeah, he's a great actor. He said he had to be let go from the film due to urgent family matters to attend to. He later admitted that it was because he got busted for possession of drugs.
Oh,
Also, when they were doing test screenings, they were shooting guns, and co-star Al Matthews also recounted an incident in which Reamer was carrying a shotgun full of live ammo on a set and blasted a hole in the wall of a neighboring soundstage in which director Frank Oz's Little Shop of Horrors was filming. So there's a good chance that very nearly murdering Miss Piggy could have been a factor in his decision too. In his place, James Cameron cast actor Michael Biehn, who showed up just a few days later with no time to prepare. Michael Biehn, of course, from The Rock and from Terminator as Kyle Reese. Great actor. Paul Reiser was cast as Carter J. Burke, which is no real. It's kind of interesting. There's no real sub backstory to why he was cast, which I thought was pretty interesting. The great Lance Henriksen as Bishop, an android, was cast. Henriksen was actually worried about taking this role due to the way Ian Holm had played Ash before. and how Rutger Hauer had portrayed Android in Blade Runner. He felt he couldn't live up to the acting of those two. So he decided to play Bishop as an innocent child who pities the short-lived humans. He suggested wearing distinctive contact lenses to convey when Bishop was alerted to danger, but Cameron believed they would make the character appear more frightening than the aliens. Um, how do you think Hendrickson played Bishop in this film, Tom?
Well, I named myself after him tonight. Definitely, I think he's one of the coolest characters in the whole series. Um, because it's different. It's a different character than I think Ian Holm's character. It's like a more advanced Ian Holm, I think, a little bit more smart. I think he played it very, very well, and thought he did a good job.
Yeah, I think he plays it with more compassion too. Like Ian Holmes'
Yeah,
character, Bash, is
it-
very kind of cold and
yeah,
calculated.
yeah.
Um, also,
And I
for the
like
role,
that you don't really remember also through the movie that he is what he is really like. Maybe you
yeah,
do. I mean, but like as a kid when I was watching it, it wasn't as like prevalent as Ian Holm when you find out, I guess.
yeah. Um, so Carrie Henn, I'm sorry, was cast as Rebecca Newt Jordan, a young girl in the colony. Cameron wanted an unknown actor to play the role, and he sure got one because I believe Carrie Hayne, this is like her last film. She actually went to go to school after this. I think she became a school teacher after this film, um, which I think is pretty cool. Like she left. She's just like if you know the guy from that played Charlie Bucket in Willy Wonka, he became a veterinarian. So sometimes people like do big roles and then they leave to do something else, which I think is kind of cool. So she was cast as Newt. Bill Paxton, which I think this story is pretty hilarious, was cast as Hudson, the colonial marine private. Paxton credited his casting as Hudson to a chance encounter with James Cameron at a Los Angeles International Airport, and during which he mentioned he would be interested in the role, and he offered James Cameron his coat for the role. Fox also supported the casting of Paxton because of his positive feedback in another great film, Weird Science in 1985.
Classic.
Paxton was worried his character would annoy audiences until he realized he was comic relief for the tense scenes, which I think he plays them perfectly. Uh, Bill Paxton is my favorite character in this whole film, to be honest with you. Um,
Great, great character.
William Hope was cast as Gorman, Rico Ross as Frost, Al Matthews was as Apone, the Marines' cool-headed sergeant. The cool thing about Matthews was he was an actual veteran from Vietnam, and he trained the Marines or actors how to handle firearms, as evidenced by the James Reamer issue, shooting the wall. He trained them to properly hold the guns the correct way and to shoot them the correct way. So you can credit him to that, the way it looks authentic. The Colonial Marine cast includes Privates Vasquez, played by Jeanette Goldstein, Drake by Mark Walston, Spunkmeyer by Daniel Cash, Crow by Tip Tipping. That's a pretty crazy name. And Wizardbrowski by Trevor Steedman, and Corporals Dietrich by Cynthia Dale Scott, and Pharaoh by Colette Hiller. Cameron instructed all the Marines to read Starship Troopers, the book, to understand the Space Marine persona. So that's
Glad I
why,
didn't. I thought I read that to say they watched it, and I'm like,
yeah,
wow, they went in the future. No, they read the
yeah,
book. That's awesome.
yeah, the book. Um, so that's our cast there for Aliens. But Tone, it wouldn't be an alien movie without issues.
I have those issues.
So Cameron faced a big problem trying to win the confidence and respect of the British crew. So they used the same British crew from the first Alien. Many of them worked on the first Alien. In order to try and convince them he had the talent and skills for the job, he arranged a screening of the Terminator for the crew on the set to demonstrate his abilities. However, the Terminator bombed in the UK when it was released there a few months earlier, and most of the crew ignored the invite and didn't bother to show up. He repeatedly locked heads with veteran assistant director Derek Cracknell over tea breaks. Apparently, the British crew was having tea breaks.
Oh
Cameron
man,
thought the British crew was lazy, insolent, and arrogant. And the Brits had some opinions about Cameron too, but those were presumably muffled by all tea soaked scones. At one point, said tea cart was allegedly damaged. I wonder who damaged it. This makes me laugh because I would like to see the backstory. Just like they filmed like a little short of this James Cameron beating the shit out of a tea cart. According to J.W. Winsler, the author of The Making of Aliens, Cameron became so frustrated with tea time, he was ready to strangle the poor old lady who was just doing her job. Things got so bad that Cameron considered moving the Aliens production, even replacing the entire crew. In the end, he settled for firing just Cracknell, which is very nearly, game over, man, for Aliens. Cracknell's firing sparked a full-blown revolt, a mutiny, basically, in which the crew walked off the set in protest. Ultimately, it was the great Sigourney Weaver, who was beloved by both parties. Why not? Sigourney Weaver, who brokered a peace treaty. This prompted a lengthy meeting between the crew and Cameron and Hurd. In the end, Cracknell agreed to be more supportive of Cameron's vision, while Cameron agreed to not give everybody crap for simply not wanting a few sips of tea from time to time.
Great.
It's ridiculous that this film almost ended for one over money, over not paying your star, which is money as well, and over tea.
Tea.
So they really spilled the tea for this one.
They did. They did.
So that's our development of the first two films. I know there was a lot of information there. I try to go through it as thoroughly as possible for you guys. Are you ready to get into some film breakdown, Tom?
Let's do it. Let's take off.
See the arc? He starts down here. He ends up here. Where's my arc, Paulie?
So we're going to start off with 1979's Aliens. So Tone, usually we go through every scene and go through the basic plot lines of the movie. If we did that for these two movies, this would be a 5-hour podcast. Now, I know we can talk that long, but I don't know if you really want to listen that long. So what I decided to go through and what we discussed is probably going through our favorite scenes from this film. So one of my favorite scenes is actually the first appearance of the ship. Now, the cool thing is how it pans over the dark area of the ship. You see the sort of stress call coming out. I love the fact that it pans through the ominous views. Everything is so dark lit, and Ridley Scott fought against it. The production, because they wanted to have it more lit, but he wanted that dark, grimy look, and I love the way that's how the ship looks. And he did all the handheld camera work himself. Originally, the lighting plan for this movie was to have pre-lit, so they wouldn't have to arrange lighting shot to shot. But director Ridley Scott soon realized it was looking very television-ish. And for those who don't know, Ridley Scott's a perfectionist with an even all-around fit for everything lighting plan. Also, the actors and actresses wind up moving in parts on the set that weren't lit enough, so they went back and forth with lighting setup. So he decided to cut that out and just do his own ominous lighting, which he did. And I think it looks like awesome the way it does. What's a scene that you really liked?
Oh, I mean, you could start going through the one I played earlier, just the way she's walking through the ship, of course. Amazing. I mean, I think the one that, of course, everybody really kind of looks at is this one here. And I think it's more in that scene. It's more of Veronica Cartwright. Oh God! I always, when you just brought her name up earlier, I thought of that, just that voice right there. But I think for a movie that, for its time period, just the way that whole scene is filmed and the way the alien actually looks. And then, of course, we got Spaceballs many years later, doing the spoof of it. But just a really awesome scene.
Yeah, for sure. And the chest bursting scene was not filmed in one take because that's a myth that's been going on, that saying it was filmed in one take. It was actually filmed twice. On the first take, the chest burster did not make it through Kane's shirt, so the crew needed to reset and shoot again. The failed attempt is visible in the final finished film, since Ridley thought it made the creature look like it was struggling to push it through. So when you see it kind of trying to come through, it's the reason why it looks like that, because it's the failed one. Also, in the book Cinema Alchemist, art director Roger Christian goes into detail on the scene about Scott's desire for an authentic grisly experience and to hide the little creature that was a puppet. Christian wrote, I sent one of the team to a local arbiter to fetch a bag of bloody animal innards.
Ooh.
The buyer returned a clutch plastic bag full of liver, intestines, kidneys, and lungs, whatever organs they could find. This was washed so that it was sanitary, but it still smelt. It was sanitized and formaldehyde, which in itself smelt bad, making the set smell like an operating theater. And with the boiling set lights, the real animal organs and gut gave off a putrid odor. While the first few takes didn't work as the puppet didn't tear through Kane's shirt correctly, one take shot Cartwright when her face accidentally went directly into a surge of blood from one of the pumps. That's why she says, "Oh God," and knocked her back and over a nearby set. This is also the first appearance of the alien. And reading through the cast's commentary on this, Weaver said it smelled horrible
Oh, I can imagine.
with them using these parts. Even the face hugger that Ash is working on was actually made up of fresh shellfish and 4 oysters and a sheep kidney to recreate the internal organs. And it had to be
Oh,
done quickly because the lights were boiling it because it was so hot. So I don't know how they did they dealt with this. It's just ridiculous. He went straight practical stuff for the effects, which I think is crazy.
awesome.
Um, Also a cool thing about this face hugger was they were actually painted green. But Dan
Mm.
O'Bannon seeing the unpainted face hugger on set and noting how intertwined how cool it looked with the two-tone character of a human skin, argue for it to remain. And I think that's actually the best thing to do because I think it looks really creepy how it looks like a little humanoid running around. And then the movements of it prior to bursting out of the egg was created by Sir Ridley Scott using a pair of rubber gloves on his hands. So when it's with the moves, that's actually him doing that, which I thought was pretty cool. Um, Another great scene I like is the first appearance of the alien, when he's actually looking for Jonesy the cat, and
Jones.
we see, like, the alien come down from the backdrop, and the cat does the "Rawr," and he's like, "Oh, Jonesy." And to get the cat to do that, act fearfully of the alien, a German Shepherd was placed in front of him with a screen between the 2 so the cat wouldn't see it at first. The screen was suddenly removed, and then that's when the cat did the hissing and sounds. To preserve the shock value of the alien's appearance, no production images were released, not even to the author, Alan Dean Foster, when he wrote the novelization, which I think is pretty crazy. So he actually the way I never read the novelization, so I wonder how he described it. Uh,
Yeah, it's true.
the room where Brett gets taken out by the xenomorph was a point of contention between Sir Ridley Scott and the producers. They didn't understand why there would be water pouring or chains dangling in a ship such as this. Scott felt there needed something to be extra movement and he stuck to his guns, which I think it makes it look cool. And actually, he had a lot of water running, like I think in 3 areas of the ship to show it's kind of like a little bit run down. That's an older ship. Um, Shredded condoms were used to create the tendons in the alien's mouth, which I think is pretty hilarious, along with remember I said earlier, I'm like, "Why is it so slimy?" Well, the reason it's slimy is because it was covered in KY jelly.
Oh, there we go.
So what'd you think when you first saw the alien attack, our man and kill him?
Again, slimy, real slimy. And now that you're explaining why it was slimy, just really honestly, um, the vibe and the music that is going on during this scene is what kind of like grabs you in and really makes you feel kind of scared when it happens.
Mhm. So what's another scene that you liked a lot?
Again, anything with I'm a big Yaphet Kotto fan, so him in the movie, any scene he's pretty much in the movie, or Harry Dean Stanton, and he just kind of there's some banter that goes on throughout the movie that there is a lot of quiet parts, but I like the conversation that happens. It's not as much like in Aliens, but it's there and it's kind of cool because it's a little bit more sparse in a way. Just I think it's you know, when they go into the ship and they see the engineer, and then obviously you see Prometheus and you could put it together all later, but see the jockey in the position or whatever in that and see all the eggs and stuff like that. I just thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and the cool thing is, when they're in the egg chamber, those blue lights that are going around, this is ties in just for you, and I did this in the, 31 Days of Horror when I removed this movie. They were borrowed from The Who.
Yep, that's the ones from the yeah,
Yeah,
Won't Get
so
Fooled Again. That's awesome.
yeah, the band was testing them out, the lasers for their stage show, and the stage show was next door to when the scene was shot. So they actually borrowed them from them, which I thought was pretty cool.
That's
Um,
really cool.
I like the shot of the, when they look at the egg and it's on a screen of Kane's face.
Yes.
That was they use a fiberglass, reflection for that, or a fiberglass egg basically for that, so he could shine the light on it. There was test shots of the eggs that were filmed, and again, within the eggs, Ridley Scott, he had, it was hydraulic, and he had the innards were cow stomach and
Mm.
tripe, and,
Ooh.
those who like menudo tripe does not smell too good, it tastes great, doesn't smell too good.
Uh,
And there was also cattle hearts and stomachs from a local butcher in there. The, face hugger's tube, like its little, tail
mm.
was sheep intestine.
Oh,
So, there's a lot of intestine stuff going on here, for this film. One scene that really irritated me, and it kinda goes with Cartwright's, description of, her character was when, Lambert and Parker die. I
uh-huh.
really hate the fact that Parker's telling her when the alien's coming up on her, he's telling her, "Get out of the way," and she's just like, like, dude's like, "Get out of the way," and then he tries to save her by hitting the alien who just turns around and, like, grabs him by the throat and is choking him, and she just still stands there and lets the guy get, like, killed by the alien, and then the alien basically takes its tail and shoves it up her, like, body and rips her apart. But it was just so annoying that she was standing there while this alien is just, like, killing this
Silliness.
dude. Yeah, it was just I knew you're scared, but, like, even if I mean, yeah, I would run if you're scared, run away from there. Like, I don't I guess they're trying to portray her being frozen, frozen scared, but that just really irritated me. And rewatching this, I'm like, "Why are you standing there?" Like,
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
yeah, and poor Parker, he was just trying to, save her, and he ended up dying because of her. Um But yeah, that kind of frustrated me. I do like the death of Dallas when he's going through the vents and they're like, they have the tracker on and it's like
Mhm,
doot, 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 doot. And
mhm.
they're like, get out of there. And then he cuts down and you have the jump scare of the alien just like
Getting
shockingly.
yeah.
And I love that about this film is that they show the alien very, very scarcely. And like when they do show it at the end, when it rises up to the Lambert scene, you actually see its whole body,
Yeah.
but they showed, like, little bits and pieces of it, because you don't really see what it looks like, and I thought that was awesome for leaving you in suspense for, what it looked like. Um,
Mhm.
so what's another scene that you really liked?
Um, again, the end.
Mhm.
I like a lot when she's in the ship, and honestly, watching this movie, you think it's all done, it's over with, she's putting everything to bed, she's gonna take off, and, the alien's, like, stuck in that, and it's like isn't it like it's, like, stuck in the, like, you would call in the thing, and it, like, it's like
It's stuck
you
in a
think
ship.
it's oh, yeah, you think it's over with, and then there you go again, it's back, which is kinda like your your horror trope where it's gone and everything's good, and the music is, again, in this movie is just really awesome, and at the beginning of both movies, it sounds very peaceful, but it's not, and that's why I think I like it, and then throughout it's, like, eerily, and then the way the music ends the movie too, where you're like, "Is it okay?" I mean, the alien, like, floated away, but, like, are we okay? Like, where is that alien? And I still think about that probably too much, is where did that alien float to? And, for a while, I don't think it has anything to do with it, but I was wondering if maybe, like, the new movie had something to do with that alien floating away, but it doesn't. I think it just floated away.
Yeah. Um, for that scene in the, alien's appearance in the shuttle, the set was actually built around, Bolaji Bonejo, the guy who played the alien, giving him an effective hiding place, however, extracting him from the hiding place proved to be more difficult.
Mm.
The alien suit tore several times, and in one instance, the whole tail came off trying to
Oh,
get him out of
geez.
that. That's a great scene. I love, like you said, the music is great, but when she sees it and she runs into the other room, it's completely silent. It's just her like breathing and
Mhm.
the alien making that like that crawling sound. Like I think the alien sound was actually a baboon call, a scream. The reason when it screams, it was actually a baboon call. But you
Mm.
could see it struggling to get out, and the way
Yeah,
she runs to the
yeah.
room, with the cat Jonesy, which makes me laugh too that she saves a cat in this film. But yeah, I just a masterpiece of a film. I loved, rewatching it. Its
I
total rewatchability is awesome for it.
Ian Holm, again, I like when he's really starting to go insane. Just the way he starts acting, especially, like, when he's in front of all those awesome looking computers that are supposed to be, like you said,
Mhm.
like, 2001: A Space Odyssey, like, you're, like, got that vibe because he's, like you're watching it, and honestly, you don't know he's I didn't,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, he just starts acting, and then and then you're wondering now, not only are you dealing on the ship with an alien, but you're dealing with this crazy robot, which is I like that too. Just
Yeah.
overall masterpiece.
Also, it makes me laugh too when I first saw it was when he would spit up the white
Mm,
fluid.
mm,
I'm like, "What the hell is that?" Like,
milk.
yeah, that's what it looked like to me.
Yeah.
I couldn't find what it was when I was reading through the notes, but it makes me laugh when, Parker comes by to try to help her when he's trying to shove the newspaper down her mouth,
Oh,
and
yeah.
Parker and he comes and just basically grabs him by, like, his boob and, like, starts twisting, and the guy's like,
Yeah. That's what I mean, like, just that whole interaction right there is probably classic, real
Yeah,
great.
and actually the scene where where they hit him, I think he hits him with the canister and his head breaks, and then they rewire him to ask him the questions of what his mission really was. That scene and when the practical effects are great where it has Ian Holmes' head come through, with the, animatronics moving
Yeah,
around. Uh, Stanley Kubrick, when he first saw this film, he actually called Ridley Scott and said, "How'd you do that?"
that's awesome.
Which I think is, like, awesome because Kubrick is the master of
Doing
perfection in terms of
cool
shots.
stuff, yeah,
So, that's pretty, high praise from somebody who's considered one of the greatest directors of all time. Uh,
sure is.
but yeah, this film, it still lives up to its, to today. I highly recommend you check out the first one if you haven't seen the first one. And if you have seen it first, haven't seen it, you should probably listen to our podcast after. But definitely, like, I enjoyed it greatly rewatching it. So many good jump scares, and it totally sets the mood for a horror film that was totally different of its time. So that's Alien, the first one, 1979. We knew it took 7 years to make the second one, and this is a totally kind of different film. Uh, this film, we have, Ripley's back. She was asleep for 57 years. We have, one of my favorite scenes, the introduction of Bishop and the knife trick. Now the knife trick was originally going to be done by Bishop alone, but according to Lance Henriksen, he suggested James Cameron to have Hudson's hand on top, on the bottom while his hands on top, to which Cameron agreed, as Henriksen felt the scene needs something extra. This change was discussed with almost everyone except the great Bill Paxton. Henriksen also remembers a long night of drinking after shooting the scene, followed by a reshoot of the scene, as it looked too fake when they sped the footage up. He accidentally caught Paxton's pinky with a knife on his reshoot, calling a a blister. Henriksen was also denied entry into the United Kingdom when he was arriving for filming. He had been rehearsing Bishop's knife trick in the USA with several different types of knives, so he didn't know which one he was going to use for filming. So he brought all of them on his flight. When he arrived in London, he had just carelessly brought all of them, and he was held by customs, which because of the alarming thing, they saw a guy with a bunch of knives. Again, of course, this is in the 80s, so it wasn't as strict as it is now, but that's still pretty crazy. And then to create the effect of Bishop performing the knife trick at inhuman speed, the footage was sped up. That creates a rather apparent goof whereby other characters in the background can be seen moving at unrealistic accelerated rates, most notably Sergeant Apon, whose head can be seen moving up and down like this, uh, as fast as he laughs. Yeah, so to be honest with you, I didn't really notice that until I was doing research, and then I rewatched and I saw him do that. So it's funny that you see it now, but in hindsight, like I didn't see it when I first watched it.
No, no.
So what was a scene? I already gave my scene for Bishop and the Knife, like as one of my favorite scenes. What's one of your favorite scenes of the Aliens, the second one?
Oh, I mean, I'll get started with, to me, this is just me, one of the scariest for me seeing it when I was a child. One of the scariest scenes was this, just because of the intensity for me. And I think what it was like right before that noise that's making, and they got it on their beeper and everything, and he goes and he looks up there and to see them all crawling like bugs towards them. Um, to me, in my mind, it it meant that you were pretty much over with just by seeing that, but they put up a really awesome fight. But just as a kid seeing that, I was ex extremely scared, very scared.
Yeah, and it's pretty crazy, the way aliens look, they look cool, but H.R. Geiger was one of the people that designed the alien, look,
Mhm.
and he didn't work on this film. Cameron actually decided against bringing him back, as Geiger was still working on the film Poltergeist 2, and Cameron had already hired, Ron Cobb, who gave the idea for the acid blood and said made for the futuristic buildings and crafts. Furthermore, there was like one major character change to be done, and that was of the Queen, which we'll get to later, which he already had some drawings on. Uh, Geiger feared that the eccentric artist would be overwhelming and difficult to work with, so he had expressed some, you know, some disappointment not being asked because everybody thought he was eccentric, and he is eccentric. But it'd been kind of cool to see what he would have came up with for the characters. Uh, I did like that, the scene where you saw them going through the ceiling, that's pretty creepy. The battle in the nest, when they first go to the nest was great. Um, when they first land on that area, Alpone tells them, Sergeant Alpone tells them they have 10 seconds until they arrive, and it actually is 10 seconds. Well, that take when he says that to when they arrive, which I thought was pretty cool. The Alien Nest set was kept intact after filming. It was later used at an Axis Chemical set for a great film in 1989 called Batman. Uh, when the Batman crew first entered the set, they found most of the alien nest still intact, which I thought was kind of cool. Uh, you also have that great line from Bill Paxton. This ain't happening, man. When they get out of there.
Oh,
Um, I love the introduction of the Marines. They had Cameron pushed again for realism with this. He had the Marines basically, you know, hang out with each other. He actually shot the introduction of them as characters last, so they can get that camaraderie with them. They also Lance Henriksen said that Full Metal Jacket was actually filming close to them, and the crews would get together often and drink and have parties. And they both feature Marines, so they were kind of pulling things off each other from it. I did like the fact how Goldstein, who plays what's her name, Vasquez
yeah.
in the film, great actress. And though she's not Latina, she actually mimicked Latina street gangs members and used some learned Spanish for the role, which is, hey, more power to her for doing it. Um, that's little tidbits like that. And she's such a badass. And one of her favorite lines is, "Have you ever been mistaken for a man?" And she just tells him, "No, have you?"
No, have you?
Which
Great
is like
line.
a great line. Just like the introduction of the characters, she's such a badass shooting things,
It's
you know,
awesome.
and her death scene is like she's
Oh,
such a
yeah.
badass. She just decides instead of being taken prisoner,
Oh, yeah.
they decide to blow up each other with the grenade. Um, you know, and the Hudson character with his comedy, Game Over Man, Paul Reiser's character as, Burke turned out to be an
Burt
asshole.
Burke is, honestly, I know a lot of people talk about Jenny, but to me, Burke is like top slime of all
Made a
slime.
decision and it was wrong. It was a bad call, Ripley. It was a bad call.
Bad call.
Right.
These people are dead, Burke! Don't you have any idea what you've done here?
Oh,
He's such a just such a piece of garbage that I just find it hilariously awesome. And because it's Mad About You's Paul Reiser, I
yeah.
think is what makes it better.
Or what else?
Because like you stated, It's the same thing with Tom Scared, or however you say his last name. He had a show when I first saw Alien, and it was called Picket Fences on Channel 7, where he played like this nice father. And I'll never forget my dad showing me Alien, and I'm like, this is that guy? And it's kind of like Paul Reiser, where he's just like, and honestly, my favorite death scenes in all movies is when Paul Reiser gets it, man. It's just so cool the way he gets it in this movie.
So a little bit on the Paul Reiser character, Burke. At the film's premiere, his sister physically struck him because his character Burke was so contemptible. She hated him. And then when his character died, his mom said, "Good."
That's awesome.
Which I think is hilarious.
Great.
Another cool thing about the reading through notes and whatnot, and the original script where Ripley is rescuing Newt, she encounters a cocooned Burke in the power plant. He claims he can feel the chest burster inside him and asks for help. Ripley simply gives him a live grenade and moves on. This scene was filmed and was supposed to come directly after Ripley uses her second flare, and just before she notices that the distance between meters reads 0. When Ripley leaves with Newt and they are startled by a sudden explosion, that was originally meant to be Burke's grenade going off. However, James Cameron cut the scene from the theoretical cut because he didn't like the scene visually and felt that Burke couldn't have been impregnated so fast after his abduction. He inserted a few shots of a sudden reactor explosion to cover for Burke blowing himself up. The scene was not among the restored scenes in the special edition either, so for decades, the only proof that existed was a still image from a magazine. It was finally made available in full on the film's Blu-ray bonus content. So that's why when she's going up the elevator, you see the explosion happen from below.
Okay.
Which I thought was cool. In terms of visually like appealing, the Queen. We have to talk about the Queen, the way
Oh,
she
yeah.
looks.
Yeah.
The Queen was basically a full-size puppet that was actually too big to fit in the elevator, which I thought was hilarious. For a shot when she's in there, her tail had to be removed and put back on when they took her out of the elevator. And to bring the Queen up to a life, would take anywhere between 14 and 16 operators. Once
Oh,
the head,
gee.
neck, body, legs, face, lips, and jaws and tongue all had to move independently. Stan Winston constructed a mold from the fiberglass and foam, which was dressed with black garbage bags and moved by 2 puppeteers that were inside in order to shoot a test video as proof that such a large creature could be feasible. The fully built animatronic creature was so convincing that Steven Spielberg later enlisted Winston to construct full animatronic T-Rexes for his film Jurassic Park. So without Alien, there would be no T-Rex to look the way it looks. Also, the cool thing about this is there used to be a ride in Disney World. I think it was called The History of Movies.
Mhm.
And there's actually an alien, like you go through Wizard of Oz, and then there's an alien room,
Oh,
and
cool.
they have the Queen in there, and the aliens, and like a Sigourney Weaver animatronic that moves around. It's pretty cool.
That's cool.
It doesn't exist anymore. I think they closed it down, but like I remember seeing that when I went with my wife, and it was awesome.
That would have been awesome.
But yeah, man, the Queen just looks like totally rad, and still holds up to this day the way it looks. And man, she fucks up Bishop, dude. Talk about the
Oh,
white
yeah.
stuff.
That's the
Like
scene
the
right
white
there.
stuff, Bishop is like spewing it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt bad for him because he got tore up there.
You
And it's
got
funny
it.
that he saves Newt with half
Oh,
his
yeah.
body
Oh,
from
yeah.
falling. Um, the character, the Queen looks so awesome that Weaver refused any information on behind the scenes how it would look. She wanted to keep like her reaction, genuine, which like you could tell it's like phenomenal to look at. And then we get the famous line, "Get away from her, bitch."
Classic.
No, which is another great little movie line. Um, but are there any other scenes that you feel like really stuck out to you?
Well, of course, I really like the fight at the end with
Mhm.
the queen and her, and I always wanted one of those machines that she's in with the
Yeah, the loader.
and then when they're like the whole like that opens up to outer space, and then the alien like stops itself down there, and then she falls, and just really all of that. Or Newt when she's in the water and the alien rises up behind her in the water or whatever and stuff. Just a lot of the dialogue too. A lot of good dialogue. Back to Vasquez. Just a lot of back and forth. I like a lot of it, but we covered a good amount of it.
Yep. So we covered both films now. So we went through a film breakdown of both films, just giving our favorite scenes. It would have been longer if we went through the film scene by scene, but we just kind of want to give you a big breakdown on development and give you kind of like what to look forward to kind of like not spoil it completely so you can see visually, but highly recommend you check out both these films. But let's find out how they were received by the critics, Tone.
Let's do it.
You know that fat cocksucker says I look like the Shah of Iran?
Who does? Tony. I never got that at all.
Well, that's great. That's just fucking great, man. Now what the fuck are we supposed to do? We're some real pretty shit now, man.
You can hear that whole quote in our outro, which
it's awesome. I know.
I love that quote. So Alien had a budget of $11 million and made $184.7 million at the box office. Again, as we learned earlier, they tried to cry poor instead of made no money. Roger Ebert reiterated Gene Siskel's earlier opinion, saying that the film was basically just an intergalactic haunted house thriller set inside of a spaceship. He described it as one of several fiction pieces that were science fiction that were real disappointments compared to Star Wars, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and 2001 Space Odyssey. However, when he did a reevaluation, he singled out the early scene of the Nostromo's crew exploring the alien planet, calling the scene inspired, said it showed some real imagination, and claimed that it transcended the rest of the film. 2 decades later, he did a reevaluation of the film, and he revised his opinion. First, he didn't like it, including it on his greatest movies list, where he gave it 4 stars and said Ridley Scott's 1979 movie is a great original. Which I thought was crazy. He didn't like it at first. I mean, Siskel didn't like it. Siskel never really liked horror movies, but like Ebert didn't like it. I'm like, it's surprising. But then I guess he made up for it, and he, turned around and said he liked it. Scenes from the film will go on to be parodied. We kind of touched on that in Spaceballs, in several TV shows, Family Guy, The Simpsons. Nintendo's long-running Metroid game series, created in 1986, was significantly inspired by Alien, both in stylistic and thematic elements. As a homage to Alien, the villains in the first Metroid installment were named Ridley and Mother Brain, after the movie's director and the ship's computer, respectively. This film also had the first female lead in horror as a badass in terms of Ripley, which propelled that character. In 2008, the American Film Institute ranked Alien as the 7th best film in the science fiction genre as part of the AFI's 10 Top 10, a CBS television special ranking of 10 greatest film movies in 10 classic American film genres. The ranks were based on a poll of over 1,500 film artists, critics, and historians, with Alien just ranking above Terminator 2 Judgment Day and below Scott's other science fiction film, Blade Runner. Pretty crazy stuff there, man, for Alien.
Very crazy.
Aliens had a budget of $18.5 million and made a box office of $131 million. Ebert gave this film 3.5 stars. He called the last hour painfully unmeditating, intense, and horror and action, leaving him emotionally drained and unhappy. Ebert believed it could not be defined as entertainment despite his admiration of the film's making craft on display. Gene Siskel described the film as one extremely violent, protracted attack on the senses. The success of the cast led to them to being cast in other films together, like Near Dark. If you haven't seen the episode with Mailman Jack and us discussing that film a few episodes back, but 3 of the cast members in Alien, Bill Paxton, Goldstein, and Hendrickson, actually appear in that film. And also Lethal Weapon 2. The film is also considered one of the best sequels of all time, and equal to or better than the original Alien. According to Slant Magazine, it exceeded Alien in every way. In 2009, Den of the Geek, which is a movie review site, called it the best blockbuster sequel ever made and remarkable even as a standalone film. In 2017, the website ranked the second best film in the series behind Alien. In 2011, Empire called it the greatest movie sequel ever. Empire also listed Aliens as the 30th best film ever made on the magazine's 500 greatest films of all time list. Its readers ranked it the 17th best. So, Tone, that's a lot of like accolades for these two films. They changed the landscape in terms of horror and action. Like I said, Alien, the first Alien is more of a horror film, but a sci-fi horror in terms of taking it to new heights. And Aliens is a horror film, but more of an action horror film, adding in those elements. It kind of amazes me that James Cameron is actually the creator of two of the greatest sequels in film history in Alien and Aliens and Terminator 2. You put this question out to me. Which one of the two is your favorite?
I always and I've always have been Aliens with an S at the end. I do like Alien. But it's more of, again, I brought this up, it's how I was raised. My dad liked Alien. He would just say it over and over. It looks like a man in a suit, which you've stated multiple times tonight. That's what it was, a man in the suit. Where, and I know H.R. Geiger is awesome, but Stan Winston is, and the alien effects, even watching it again, I watched them both, and they're both, I love watching them now more than I loved watching them when I was younger, but now I can see the magic in both of them equally. I don't really have to pick. But watching Aliens, as you stated, and just the Queen and the way it's all shot, and this is the mid 80s, it doesn't look dated at one bit. Where there is some things with the alien costume in the original Alien that I think just a little bit could have been done differently, so it didn't look so. But everything else in the movie's great. I don't want to put anything down, but that's just my opinion. How about yourself?
I'm a total Aliens. It's probably my favorite film of the series, actually, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean,
So this Alien spawned Aliens, and then Alien 3, and the ill-forsaken Alien Resurrection. Then we had Alien versus Predator, and then Alien versus Predator Requiem, which we don't count them to canon, but you also had the 3 prequel films, including the new one coming out. So the film series is still very strong. Prometheus I saw. I haven't seen the second one.
you didn't see Covenant? Because
No.
honestly, I think you'd like it a lot. Because
So-
Covenant, and it's Ridley Scott too, but Covenant comes. Well, Covenant reminds me is like a little bit more if Ridley got to do Aliens, where it's a little bit more action heavy, whereas Prometheus was a little bit more sci-fi. This new one that'll be coming out, Romulus, it's supposed to take place between Alien and Aliens. Now, supposedly,
So is this one with the mining city, or
this brand new one that's coming out?
yeah, is this like
It's a ship. And what it is supposedly it's a ship that has 2 parts, and one of the parts of the ship is Romulus, and the other part of the ship I can't remember. But what it's described like is one ship is kind of like Alien, and the other ship is like Aliens with technology, where like, and something I think from Alien 1 is up there, like something about DNA or something that they got, and it gets loose from what I've been kind of experiencing. I don't know 100%, but it's interesting to know that it's going to take place between those 2 movies. It's also interesting that they've picked another awesome, supposedly female lead. I've heard lots of positives, a lot more positive than I heard for like Alien versus Predator, any of those movies. So fingers are crossed.
I'll check out Covenant tonight. I was
Please, honestly, I need to watch it again too. You like Fassbender, right?
Yeah, I love Michael Fassbender. I think he's a
But
great
then,
actor.
I mean, honestly, just for Michael Fassbender's performance alone, it's really awesome. But Ridley Scott, man, he does a great job, and I think well, check it out.
Unless it's Robin Hood. But I also forgot to mention the Alien films actually inspired another video game classic in terms of Contra.
I was going to ask you about that. because that was my favorite game growing up, and I was never quite sure because I got the Alien vibes, but I never got the okay. And I knew you were the big video gamer, so you can give me that. So yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
shout out to my brother. He actually texted me to remind me because I totally forgot
Okay,
to put in
good.
notes. But yeah, there are face huggers and that and Super C. So that they did pull from the Alien films. Actually, also, if you ever play, there's an Alien Isolation game for PC. I actually did a stream on it where I played through it. That
Mhm.
game's actually really, really fun. It's kind of like a survival game, and you go. It's basically you against one xenomorph, and there's a bunch of androids around. But like the death scenes are cool, and you have to hide in closets, and you have to slow down
Was
your heart rate so it can't hear you. It's pretty awesome.
I'm almost positive, was there an, hold on a second here, yep, there was, a 1990s, the Aliens arcade game
Yeah.
where you got to, what was it like? I think you got to have did you have machine guns here? I'm looking at a picture of it. You had something that looks like, I don't know, but, no, you didn't. You were like, I think it was when you were like the 4 people and you could stand at it and play multiple characters, I think. I could be wrong, but I remember
No, I think
seeing
it's
it at
shooter.
the
Shooter.
arcade. Was it a shooter one?
Yeah. And then
But,
there's also Alien 3, which the AVGN did a review over, which is pretty funny. But yeah, I mean, it's inspired a lot of things, these films. And there's I mean, I do like they're doing prequels because they kind of expanding upon the story. And this was O'Bannon's baby and Ridley Scott's baby, and he's expanding upon it. O'Bannon has passed. So I will check out Covenant, and then I'll check out this new one. Maybe we'll go see this. Me and you go see this new one.
oh, you don't even word already sign me up. This is one where I will cancel everything that I have to be there whenever you say we're going to be there, because this is the movie I'm probably one of the most I'm excited about, just because the trailer really grabbed me as saying like, is this going to be good? And I'm hoping it is.
I hope so too.
Good director. I mean, you like horror movies. Did you like the 2013 Evil Dead?
2013, I did like. I did not like the newer one.
Oh no, we went and seen that. We didn't. Did you like what's the one where he doesn't talk in the house? Don't
Oh,
the one with the guy from Avatar. Don't speak. He's like blind.
I don't know if I've seen that one.
It's what the Stephen Lang. Hold on a second. I will come up.
Stephen
I know.
Lang.
Hold on, you're gonna know what the movie is. But no, Don't Breathe.
No, I have not seen it.
You didn't see Don't Breathe?
No.
Really, again, another this is one of those that came out the last couple of years, but he's like he lives on this block in the middle of nowhere, and a bunch of people like think they're gonna break in and steal his stuff, but he's actually armed to the T and he's blind, but he takes them all. It's a good movie. Check it out. But good director. Both these movies, Evil Dead and this, give me hope that, and honestly, what gives me hope more than all of it is that both Ridley Scott and James Cameron saw it, and they both had amazing reviews, but they were both completely different reviews, which to me, that excites me because it meant they both liked it, but liked it for completely different reasons, which that's what makes me want to see it. Because like, what did they like it so much for? And Ridley Scott is producing it. And then I read today, ironically, just today, because we did the show today, there's this television show that's going to be coming on FX in the next year, which takes place 25 years before the first Alien movie. So somebody I saw in the comments, like, is this going to have attached to Prometheus? It probably does, but it's another show. So we're getting into the midst of some Alien content coming out, and if it's good, man, I'm here for it.
Cool. Maybe we'll do some reviews on that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Alien and Aliens. Let us know what you guys think in the comments. Let us know at our Twitters. Let us know on the comments of YouTube. Thanks for watching this. I know this is a little quick mini breakdown of both of them. But we got some good stuff coming up, Tone. Let everybody know what's coming soon after we get to our intro for that. If I can find a damn thing. Oh, where did you guys delete it, Tony?
I did not touch anything.
You son of a... Oh, here we go.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Coming soon.
Próximamente.
Coming soon.
Coming soon.
Right? we talked about a couple different things, but you never okayed the first thing. And I think this is were we doing this next week, the baseball? Or were we
No,
doing Mad Max?
I thought we were doing Mad Max.
All right, we'll do Mad because I said in May, because next week isn't May.
Oh, okay, we can do baseball next time.
Oh yeah, but, we'll just do. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Next week we are going to pick a couple of our favorite baseball movies. It's baseball season. We're going to be going at a different time. We were talking about let's try for Saturday.
Okay.
Maybe sometime Saturday, maybe later afternoon, maybe around 5 or 6. You could in the afternoon sometime or earlier,
Probably,
if not Sunday.
earlier.
Okay, we'll do
Sunday.
Sunday then. We'll do Sunday.
Sunday at 2 again?
Sunday at 2. We will be back at Sunday at 2 and get ready for some heated debates because there's a movie that I am planning to pick that I already know that my co-host does not like. And I really, really want to press him of why he doesn't like this great movie, but we'll get to that next week. And what we were going to do, which we're going to probably do the weekend after, is we'll be back on Friday night, and we will be doing a breakdown of Mad Max Fury Road, which the new movie coming out, Furiosa, which I was again today reading awesome things about how they're he shot a 16-minute continuous action scene that I guess took 72 days. Another great, crazy director, George Miller. Excited to go through that.
Yes. So we will be doing baseball movies next week. We'll see how many we can do in the list, and then we'll do our breakdown of Furiosa. That'll be a more traditional at the show breakdown, so it'll be a little longer episode in terms of going by scene. A lot of great character art in there, and I really love the Mad Max films. Even the Thunderdome, I like that film, even though it's not that great. I do like.
Don't
George
ever say
Miller's,
that out loud. I love that movie. The movie's great.
It's
before a quick joke before we and I'll bring it up again when we do it. An inside joke that me and my dad had before he passes. We were calling each other Master Blaster and Ironside. If you go on my wedding, my wife did this thing on our wedding board where you did your thumb like in paint, and then you put your thumbprint. My dad my dad put his thumb and then he put Iron Bar in quotations right above it. So for the rest of my life on our wedding thing, he's like the only one with his thumb, and then he's got Iron Bar and quotation marks from Thunderdome. But love Mad Max, man, and when I'm very excited that we get to talk about it here. So it's gonna be great in a couple weeks.
Yep. So that's what's coming soon. Next, let's just go straight transition to our next segment there for the Sugar Baggies soundtrack pick of the week.
The Sugar Baggies soundtrack pick of the week.
Tonight, I wanted to go a little bit into the horror category with an amazing late 90s, what I would just call a new metal smorgasbord of, well, pretty much amazingness if you take off Kid Rock from the 18 track list here, but everyone from Seven Dust and Pantera, and Anthrax and Snot, the Strangeland soundtrack, Dee Snider's directorial debut. You ever see this horror movie, Strangeland?
Yeah, it's not that great. It's more
cheesy, it's awful. It's an awful horror movie. Fuck this soundtrack. Let me tell you, everybody liked it. And this song right here, a band that does not get talked about too much, is a little bit of Head PE.
You forgot what you came here for. What's your theory? Why you trying to play that game?
More rap rock for you for the late 90s, but again, remember all my friends here. I mean, any soundtrack that had Megadeth, Pantera, Anthrax, Cold Chamber, Soulfly, I mean, but the movie itself, I think the concept was really awesome. I just think he executed it very, very awfully, just all around awfully executed. But for the time period, everyone was really excited because Dee Snider's got this horror movie coming out, and well, the soundtrack at least was semi-memorable.
Yeah, the soundtrack is probably the best part of that film. Dee Snider's character in it, I think, what's it called?
Was it the cowboy? Captain
Howdy or something. No, it's like a playoff. The Exorcist.
So when was for real quick? When's the last time you've seen this movie? Has it been a while?
Very, very long time ago.
Me too. Me too. It's been Captain Howdy. You were absolutely right.
Yeah. I just remember the way he looked.
Oh yeah,
he looked all creepy.
Not a whole lot of like again. What's funny though is like Linda Cardellini's in it. Robert England is in it. Amy Smart is in it. Elizabeth Pena's in it. Which I didn't even remember all those people being in it when I was doing the research. So maybe watching this again to see really how ridiculous it is through the eyes of me now. But first remembering though, I was not what I would deem a fan, but it's kind of like me and a coworker recently were talking about the last like 4 Rob Zombie movies. Some of them aren't the best either, and they're kind of in the same category in my degree. But again, try to switch it off because last week I did Urban Cowboy, so I was going, where can I go today? But after actually some of our conversations earlier, I've actually granted like 5 new ideas, so I'm excited.
Are you really now?
I am.
Wow. I'm going to put up this picture of Mr. D. Snyder.
Do it.
When I get it here. Because he looks horrible.
Yes. Yes.
That's what he looks like in this film.
And for a long time, I think he teased like, don't worry, there's gonna be like a sequel, and it just never. And he wanted the sequel to be, and I'm reading actually it as in time now that he wanted this to be NC-17, which I don't know who is asking for that. Because honestly, what's hilarious is, again, this last week on the musical front, he came out and it was like, Twisted Sister's getting 7-figure offers for reunions. And in my head, you know me, I got a music, I like music. Who's suggesting this? Who wants? Because it's like the city of Lombard might have a festival coming up, and maybe we can get Twisted Sister for 50,000, but not for 7 figures.
He also said that he sold his whole catalog and made he makes X amount of money from. I think Twisted Sister's like best song is "We're Not Gonna Take It," and their best role in a film is from Pee Wee Herman's when they sing the "Don't You See No Evil, You Burn in Hell."
Yeah, I mean, really quick story. I'll never forget that my mom, back in 8th grade and freshman year, me and my cousins, we would each get CDs for Christmas. And I'll never forget, my cousin wanted Twisted Sister, and my mom bought it from Circuit City, and my buddies were over and saw it on the table, and my one buddy threw it across the room, and my mom was like, "Why did you just throw Twisted Sister?" And I was like, "Because it sucks." And we all just started laughing. But that being said, I'm also noticing on the soundtrack a little ego putting your song number 1 and last. I mean, come on, give some of these newer bands a little bit of a shout out. But yeah.
Well, I mean, when you look like this.
No, you're right. You don't got much to you gotta go number 1, I guess.
Yeah, and for those who are listening to us on the podcast, he has basically a tomahawk, I guess, kind of haircut. With like a Samoan face paint.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like The Rock's arm tattoos leaked over on D. Snyder's face.
Yeah, with a bunch of if you guys ever seen that movie No Escape, the bad guy has a bunch of piercings in his nose. That's what he has here.
With Ray Liotta and yes, classic.
Yeah, he kind of has that look going from. It's a pretty bad horror film, but check it out and enlighten me and Tony and let us know what you think about it. But that's our show for today. We kept another 2 hours, which is a big milestone for us.
In after show history, this is huge.
So episode 51 is now in the books. Next week we'll be going through some baseball movies, and then we'll get into Fury Road after that. We have some good things in the pipeline. Look out for some hook up on music. Tony does every Wednesday live at 7 o'clock. with special guests. We will be bringing back our segments with our regular occurring guests. We just with these double features and lists, we kind of like have to spread them out so we can have our segments kind of be spread out with our shows. So they're not leaving. So Mailman Jack and Roxy will be coming out to do the reviews again. We might have a new segment coming soon as well. So be sure to check out Sadistic Penguin Studios for blogs and posts that Tony posts up and everybody else, as well as our YouTube at Sadistic Penguin Studios. Again, we have the Hook by Music, and Brian just had a draft for It's Getting Drafty in here, doing gummies, doing the Munchies food. It was a really fun one with Gordo from White Sox Twitter, along with fellow Penguins Marge and Luke.
Me and Gordo have had a private chat just talking about buffalo shrimp and ridiculousness. Really awesome show.
Yeah, really, really awesome show. And the great Julie Fonseca was hilarious on there.
Like her sunglasses.
Yeah.
She looked awesome, just chilling.
Just check it out. It's just wackiness and hilarity from all of them. So be sure to check them out. And check out Brian on Tuesday for It's Getting Drafted. They're going to be doing a draft, I believe, on Arrested Development. Yeah, just check out all our stuff. Like I said, there'll be more stuff coming down the pipelines. Be soon tuned to that. And with that, Tone, you got anything else to plug?
No, I think we've covered it all. And boy, this was a lot of fun. Thank you for joining us.
Yep, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the At the Show podcast, a Sadistic Penguin Studios production.
Game over, man. It's game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now? What are we gonna do?
Maybe we could build a fire, sing a couple of songs, huh? Why don't we try that?